So did you know that over 80 million people in the US have an autoimmune condition? And if that's you or someone you know, please stay tuned because we're going to dive in how to support you and how to reverse it. Hi, I'm Dr. Angela Yeagley. Welcome to Sage Health TV. Today, I'm super excited to talk about autoimmunity because this is something we see a lot in our practice, probably because people are searching for natural solutions to support and heal their bodies, but also because it can be difficult. Once you're diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, that usually it just looks like a lot of drugs. Either people or doctors are just watching you or they're prescribing a lot of medication. So first I want to talk about, what is autoimmunity? What we understand about autoimmunity is that at some point, likely you had an infection and then the body created, mistook your own cells for the enemy of what it was trying to kill. And then all of a sudden it started from that point on attacking that part of the tissue. So that could be localized, so that could be, something like thyroid, so Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It could be full body, and that's lupus and MS, rheumatoid arthritis. So there are many, many different kinds, but the way that we approach it is actually unique in the sense of a very individualized approach for you. And I'll talk about that. So a couple things I also want to discuss today because I think it can be exciting for people who, have especially a severe type of autoimmune disease to see examples of people who have done the work, who have done these things I'm recommending and have reversed their autoimmune disease and talk about it, and you can check them out. The first person is Dr. Terry Wall, and so she is an MD who was diagnosed with chronic relapsing MS, which means that it just continues to go, and all of the drug therapies failed. And by the time she was in her 50s, early 50s, she was in a wheelchair, and they thought probably didn't have much longer to live. And so she, because none of the drugs, she had, being an MD, had tried everything, all of the drugs, all of even the trial drugs. And she's like, this isn't working, I'm dying. And so she dove into everything I'm going to talk about, and you can actually check out her book on this. It's something, Minding Mitochondria, something like that, but you'll find it under her name. She almost completely reversed her MS, which is almost, at the time that this happened, it was really quite shocking. She was out of the wheelchair, up walking, and now she's out doing TED Talks and speaking. And then the other person, Joe Cross. So he is an average business guy who did Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And that's the Netflix movie where he did 60 days of juicing. And so that is extreme. It was mostly greens. It was like 80% greens and 20% fruit. And he had a very rare, painful, blistering autoimmune disease where it would erupt all over his body. And he also had diabetes and was on tons of meds for blood pressure. He was 300 pounds. And so at the end of that 60 days, transformational, almost lost probably like 70 pounds, was off all medications. His autoimmune disease basically went into remission. It was completely gone. They couldn't find markers on it, and he had no symptoms. So that movie is really exciting. So diving into what are the top 5 causes, and again, not every one of these are going to apply to you if you have an autoimmune disease, but they definitely should be checked out. So the first one, toxins. You've probably heard about this a lot. Well, especially if you tune into our show, I'm always talking about heavy metals, and that's like lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and very high correlation with having those things and having autoimmunity. And so there's a big study called a TAC trial. The NIH did a 12-year study on IV chelation, and the risk of autoimmunity in those people dropped significantly, in addition to a bunch of other stuff, cardiovascular disease, cancer risk. So it was a really cool, even though that was not their primary marker, it was a really cool thing to see. So we want to measure those pesticides, other chemicals. People who tend towards autoimmunity either have had very high exposures, to something that was not addressed for a long time, or they have poor detoxification systems, or it's a combination of both, So yeah, detox systems that I actually didn't write down on here is definitely a piece of the puzzle. Food allergies. So that might not seem like, you're like, oh, it's just food. But if you think about it, it is, it's something you put in your mouth every single day. We think about taking a supplement, like I'm going to take my turmeric, it's 2,000 milligrams, great studies on that, and I recommend it. But if you're eating, something you're allergic to, you're eating gluten every day and your body hates it and is trying to kill it, the antibodies, right? It's stimulating your immune system in a negative way. And then SAD, we call it the standard American diet because it is sad. It's like, the processed foods going out to, fast food, things like that. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans eat like that. And so we really need to shift, into whole foods diets and finding out what in particular is your food intolerance. Gut disruption is huge. There are a lot of studies between the link with the gut being imbalanced and having autoimmune conditions, absolutely. And, the problem is that many times, antibiotics I think are being used less, but they're still being used. So you'll get the rise of what we call bad or pathogenic bacteria, or fungal overgrowth is really common. And you can even have parasites that you've been, had walking around for a long time. And we don't really check those in standard medicine. So we really need to dive in and work on repairing the gut, hands down, no matter what no matter which of the autoimmune conditions that you have. And then treating hidden infections, very, very important. So most people don't know that they have like a chronic reactivated mono in their system, and that's EBV, CMV, HHV6, and parvo, not the same one that's in dogs, it's the human parvo. And then also like Lyme is really common, other types of tick infections, as well as like other gut infections. Should have mentioned the SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So and many times people have combinations of these, and this is where it gets tricky, right? You're like, oh, I do have bloating and I have excessive gas, and which could be a SIBO or it could be, some other pathogen in your gut. But you don't remember that you used to play with lead as a kid, and or that you've picked up, some other virus. So a lot of times people just don't remember those things. So we have to test for it. And then stress is really quite big, there are great studies that when people are in a calm state, that the symptoms of autoimmunity, even markers, go down. And so highly encourage you, if you're in a really stressful place, to get counseling, to reach out to us, to start utilizing resources like maybe the Calm app. I really like Insight Timer. It's an amazing meditation and visualization app. And then I'm also a huge fan of the plugin. The infrared sauna is super, super relaxing and calming. So just bringing in things into your daily routine that feel good to you, and that feel relaxing. But definitely reach out. So then I just wanted to I wrote an example treatment plan because there's a lot of things I didn't talk about, like as far as optimizing, vitamins that has to happen. So, vitamin D3, have to optimize that. Most people are on 10,000 a day, anti-inflammatory oil. So you're usually doing some, really pure source of fish oil. You're doing like a good omega-3 at like 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams. Anti-inflammatory herbs are like your turmeric and bromelain and frankincense, quercetin, mycotoxin testing. So I kind of mixing this up a little bit. I didn't talk about mold. Mold is another, exposure that can really devastate people. So if you think you've been exposed to that, or again, maybe even if you're not sure, just get tested. Stool testing, definitely that would check a lot of things I was talking about with the gut. And then extensive blood work. So we really, when we see people, we check everything. We're doing, your thyroid and your adrenals and your hormones and your all your vitamin levels and checking these viruses. So see us or functional medicine doctor to do that for you. Got to work on your diet. Got to get that food testing. And then I just want to speak to, for people that have very severe autoimmunity where they're very, very compromised. And so, and having a lot of symptoms. And I would put, say, Dr. Terry Wall in that category, right? So, some of the things that she pursued, she was doing IV therapy. So like IV MAH, which is IV ozone, IV ALA, which is alpha lipoic acid, IV NAD, just for cellular energy creation, glutathione, so IV glutathione, which is a super antioxidant, and then IV chelation for sure, to pull those metals out of your body. And many times we'll do multiple of these in addition to sending you for like hyperbaric oxygen chamber and, maybe the hyperbaric ozone chamber. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things out there. Sometimes we have to, take extraordinary steps to heal people that are in a place that maybe, the body has just had those issues for a long time. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I would love to chat with you. And thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you next time.